Once upon a time, there were millions of businesses struggling. Every day they wasted time, effort, and money on repetitive tasks that added no value. One day, the Better Automation podcast by PROCESIO came to help them find a way. Because of this, these businesses save time, reduce costs, innovate, and make better decisions. Because of that, these businesses grow, scale, and use human creativity to change this world. Hello, my name is Aziz, and I'm your host at Better Automation Podcast by PROCESIO, where I interview the world's top experts and share their very best ideas on how to improve automation in your business, processes, and life. My guest today is Alexis Kovalenko. Alexis is the founder of the French NoCode Community in 2018, which now has over 6,000 members, and the co-founder of Contournement, a no-code hacker and a full-stack entrepreneur. Contournement is one of the pioneering education companies around no-code in Europe. Alexis is also the host of NoCode World Radio, which is an English language podcast about no-code. Alexis, how are you today?
Hi Aziz, I'm very good. Very happy to have a chance to chat with you again, especially about automation, which is a topic I'm very passionate about.
It's fascinating that you're passionate specifically about automation. Why is that topic so important or a focus for you?
So, I'm originally a programmer. So ever since I know how to code, I've always written myself some small scripts, some things, to help myself do my work, do my homework, maybe even when I was a student. I feel like code has helped me a lot back in the days to be more efficient and save time. And now I'm very happy that with all those no-code tools, Zapier, Make, all those tools, you can do the same without coding, and it's much more accessible. So everyone now has a chance, to stop doing repetitive tasks, to do all those things that the machine can do. And this saves time. You can spend that time with your friends. Maybe you can spend that time learning. Maybe you can spend that time working more if you want to earn more. Maybe I don't know. So yeah, I like this concept. Like automating for saving time, pretty much.
Why is saving time important for you?
Well, it's a bit of a cliche, but, it's the one resource that, we keep losing, 1 second after the other. And I don't know, I feel like, feel a bit in a urge. Maybe it's not good, actually, but that, to do many things. I'm interested in many things, so I want to learn a lot. There's many people to meet. There's a lot of things to be done. There's a lot of travel to be made, so that's why, I kind of always feel like we don't have enough time.
So you're a polymath, basically. And well, to ask you about this, because it's very important, I can understand automation for personal productivity, but when it comes to businesses, do you feel businesses should begin with a plan for automation from their very first day or week or month, or they should do things, in the repetitive way until they find their product market fit? And when they find it, then they can be focused on automation. Do you find that automation is something that nowadays so accessible, so important, it should be from the very first day, or you begin as an entrepreneur with a chaos, and then only when you begin to earn money, then you turn that into order and efficiency?
Well, I think part of the answer is in the question. I think you know this topic quite well. I don't think you should be automating everything from day one, because it's not just about earning money. I think it's also because at the beginning you don't really know what you want to automate. So I think things, you need to do them in the repetitive way, by hand a few times, and iterate already by hand. And then once you know exactly, because you might already make the process you want to automate better just by hand. And once you know exactly what you do, then maybe you can automate. You shouldn't wait too long also, that's true. I think you have to have it in mind. And I think there's even a portion that's in between, that when you I would say, semi-automate, You automate parts of the process, some you keep doing by hand until, brick after brick of this whole process, step after step, you manage to automate everything.
Thank you. And that reminds me of something very important since you're speaking about processes and everything. I don't know how you're doing it at the French NoCode Community or Contournement, but do you believe there are two schools of thought? One of them is to use the best practices, the proven SOPs or standard operating procedures for your business processes, to follow that. While other people say, if you do that, then you're not unique. You will be too similar to what everybody's doing. So you should try to innovate and at least create some difference in the processes that you are using. And therefore, your business really should not look from the inside similar to any other business in this world. Which one do you agree with? Do you view this as a right perspective? Do you see people within your community following one philosophy or the other?
I would say that I'm more of the second school, I would say, to answer your question straight away, because of the no-code tools. Like all those tools, like mentioned a few, but there are more. There's so many things. They're making things so accessible that you have a chance to make things like your own, to adapt exactly your way you want to automate, you want to operate exactly to fit your business and the way you want to proceed, because those things are more accessible. Maybe back in the days it was easier to fit into like more standard things and tools. They would lead you, into. But now I think, I don't know, that's maybe what I'm saying is not applying to all businesses. Maybe like some specific businesses have to follow very strict procedures, but in the general, sense of what we're talking, entrepreneurship, I would say now we are able and we should aim to do things really our way.
Thank you. And to step back a little bit, you mentioned you come from the coding space and as a programmer, and now your focus is no code, you're investing your life, you're betting on it, all that. How was that journey or that background story of you becoming interested in no code? What value do you find it offers people? And do you see it as something that is indispensable for the future, that will really, really make everything different because of the citizen developers, because of the ease of use, because of all of that?
So it's a mix of two things, I would say, for myself. So I've worked like almost 15 years as a developer and lead dev and CTO. I was very technical, and I still love like the technical aspect of building products. But I got a little tired, like it's tough to stay on the standards, all the new frameworks. When you're a coder, you have to be very good all the time and learn new things, and it gets exhausting, and the older you get. But for how I really discovered and got into those no-code tools and no-code space is because of my co-founder, Erwan, who was following those tools already since when it was not called no-code tools. Like he was building websites with Squarespace back in 2010. He was like, we met in a company he started 7 years ago to help people become programmers, to make code more accessible. But back then it was with code, with tools like Ruby on Rails, which are making it's easier to learn and build things with Ruby on Rails than to build things with, I don't know, C or, like all those very tough languages. So he was very interested in making technical building more accessible. And he was also following those tools. He discovered Bubble back in 2014. He showed it to me back in those days, and I was like, yeah, it's not very stable. I'm a coder, so I don't really care. I kind of dismissed it. I have to admit it at first. But then in 2018, I discovered Webflow. Like the two tools that really made me switch, I would say, is Webflow, which I found is an amazing tool for programmers also. Like I could see like, okay, this Webflow was built by web developers who want to make life easier, for people to build websites, and they know what's the pain. And Airtable, I think it's more in the subject of automation. I think Airtable is making building a relational database so much easier. It's improving the life of so many people. You say, okay, like I know how to build a MySQL database, but it's complicated. Not everyone can do that. Airtable is bringing this in almost a fun way. Like using Airtable, I think it's fun. It's beautiful. It's colorful. And so this is really what convinced me. And then the last reason, I would say, like we got, as you said, we're really betting on this because it's true. It's because we saw an opportunity, I would say. Like in 2018, 2019, there was already a lot of content in English. There was several like great people already producing content, but nothing in French. And so we said, okay, like we have a chance now to kind of come and be some among the pioneers of bringing this no-code movement and some of those tools into the French community. So we started the community, we provide free content, we build online courses. And then slowly we realized that automation, and I include Airtable in automation, it's really the future. It's not building websites, building apps with Bubble and all this is amazing. But what most people need is automating, is organizing their data better, improving their work, their productivity. And so that's why we went full in this like no-code ops thing, specifically, I would say.
Thank you. And I have a very important question to me personally that I believe maybe Contournement will be a factor in solving this issue. I was reading, I think yesterday itself, about some professors and teachers that are saying Generation Z and Alpha are really, really bad at using even simple tools like Excel because they grew up on iPads or on phones, etc., where they already have the app. It's so easy to use. The UI, UX is already thought through. They don't use a lot of desktop or laptop apps in general. And therefore, like a teacher was showing them how to do some things in Excel. And they really were confused, not in a lazy way, but that they literally had no idea how to use Excel at all, and the logic of it was lost on them 100% compared to all the apps that they click on to use in a much, much simpler way. You were speaking about how anybody could learn Airtable, learn PROCESIO, learn whatever tools that you're speaking about, but if in the future people are less and less able to handle the fundamentals and the basics of computer creation, of biz ops, of no code building, what will happen? Because a lot of the people involved now in the no-code community grew up on enough of the desktop tools to understand, okay, so when you click on this happens. They understand the logic. They can get some intuition for how something can work. They can at least have a basic understanding of databases and all that. But if the newer generation doesn't even have those basics, all they know is how to play video games and to click totally optimized UI, UX apps. How can Contournement help with this? Do you notice it in the French market with the younger generation? Because this was a North American article that I was reading about. And what are your thoughts about this?
Well, it's probably the same. I wouldn't say I noticed it. To be honest, it's super interesting. I didn't know about that kind of study and those conclusions. So thanks for sharing this with me, because it makes sense. And it gives me the opportunity to say that I think what applies to Excel might not apply to Airtable, because I truly believe that part of this, I don't know if I would say NoCode Revolution, but let's say, okay, this is like movement or whatever phenomenon, is a UX revolution. It's like all those tools, Airtable in first, is extremely well designed to make it accessible to most people. So I'd be curious to see, if I didn't have access to really young people enough, to try this. But I would bet that because all those people, you're saying, those young people, they're fluent with the numeric stuff. Maybe they can't, and I really understand that they won't find Excel making sense for them. But still, they're very, comfortable with the computer in general, the mouse, clicking, well, maybe more with the phone than. But so I think Airtable might work better with them. And, I would say also the same for older generation, because I see my parents, they have a hard time also understanding things that are happening in the computer. So also for them, it's hard to use Excel. And I think maybe Airtable would be easier. But it's super interesting. I will, when I go back to France, I will definitely try to get 15-year-olds and show them Airtable.
I would be very interested to know what you'll discover as well. This will be very valuable to the community and to the understanding, because there are a lot of assumptions. And I will play the devil's advocate, although I love the no-code community. And you mentioned the no-code revolution. Do you really believe there is such a thing? Or is it something we say to each other, just like a football team, hooligans or whatever, who love the same team? And they're like, we're the best in the world, we will win, blah, blah, blah. But it's not really real. It's just the words that encourage each other. So to you, logically and practically, what revolution is there? Or even if it's not a revolution, what big impact does no code have? Is it like some people will say, I remember there is a video by Steve Jobs, I know it's from a long time ago, who was speaking about abstracting code. It's similar to no code. He wasn't really dissing no code per se, but he was saying that you have to understand code so that you can create tight code, and then you can write 8 lines that replace a billion things. But if you abstract it, people will lose that ability, that logic, that understanding, and therefore they create bloated apps that are not as optimized as if you're a hard coder who understands what he's doing. So what is the no-code revolution? Is it real? And if it's real, what difference will it make in the years to come?
You're right. I don't really like to use the word revolution because it's a bit too much. And we're also in a bit of a bubble between ourselves, and we're very convinced about all this. But what I would say is just Steve Jobs, is definitely a visionary. So we can't take that off from him. I would say it's just a matter of several facts that brings this no-code tools together. I don't know, movement, revolution, whatever, phenomenon. I don't know. It's just which words, but it's like fast internet, very powerful clouds and browsers, and this UX, and you bring all this, and you just have to type bubble.io or airtable.com, and you're into a software that is accessible to use almost straight away, not directly straight away. That's why we do courses. But it's much easier than learning how to code, or much easier to learn how to use Excel, I would say. So that's, it's like all those facts come together and they bring this. Where are we going? We were asking this in the previous question. I think, and that's the wish of several tool publishers like Emmanuel from Bubble, the co-founder. He doesn't like the word no code. And he believes, and a lot of people agree, that we won't be using no code anymore in 5 years. Just the term. Maybe we say visual programming. Maybe, it just will be the same. Because as you were saying, and that video of Steve Jobs, really everyone should watch it, it's no code is just the higher level of abstractions, Like he's saying in this video, I think, you're right, with 8 lines of codes, what people were, putting 700. And now it's just, you don't write code, you just drag and drop some blocks, and you're the same as those 8 lines of codes, So it's just a higher level of abstraction, and eventually just become the norm. There will be coders, visual programmers, and what's the impact? Well, I would say just more people able to build, digital products, and more people, which is what is interesting us even more, working efficiently, with digital tools and automating things, and being. That's the impact I can see. But it's true, we're at the very beginning. Maybe that won't happen really, because maybe not everyone is going to embrace those tools. We'll see, but we see an increase, especially during the COVID time, the lockdown. There's all those no-code tools, and they raised a lot of money also, so they're here for a long time. Airtable is valued, I don't know, 2 billion, 4 billion, I don't know. So those numbers. So they're here to stay, I think. But we'll see. We'll see together, and we have a chance to talk, in a few years, hopefully.
Yes, actually, no code. I remember a Microsoft front page from the 90s. It was called What You See is What You Get, or WYSIWYG or something like that. I'm not really sure. So, or I think it was Lycos in French, where you can build a website similar to Squarespace, but very basic. So it was a drag and drop, and therefore it has gone through a lot of iterations. Now it became its own thing. And to ask you again, a lot of entrepreneurs or business people who come to the no code space, maybe they have this blame thing about what is offered to the people, or the idea or the assumption there is, oh, like I remember one no code teacher was saying, in order, to succeed at no code, you should plan this year to finish 20 projects and all that. So the focus is on skill development rather than actually creating something that earns money, that creates revenue, that makes a difference and an impact for clients. And therefore, someone will get enthusiastic, they will get lost in the skill development, they will go through all the courses and then end up in like losing money and thinking, what did I get into? And they might feel negatively about the no-code community rather than positively because they were going in the wrong way. And there was a marketer who gave this example. He said, look, if your clients are someone who had an accident on the road and they're bleeding, they don't care if you come to them with like a bicycle to take them to the hospital or in a Rolls Royce. All they care about is to get to the hospital so that they will survive. And therefore, where do you draw the line? Is this just marketing, or is there really too much focus on skills compared to usefulness? And you spoke about efficiency. Or do you believe that even if you find something that is useful to clients, if your skills are not there, you will not really deliver a satisfactory experience, and therefore you end up losing? What is your thought on this?
It's good that you're opposing those two things, I would say. I'm definitely more on the skill side, but I see also your point. But that's where I would also draw a line between building products for clients or for yourself, if you want to launch a startup or something, you have an idea, and automating, organizing, productivity. And I think in productivity, like learning how to use automation tools or database tools, if you have those skills, they will always be useful to you and to people, I think. Like it's because, like literally just to organize your recipes for your kitchen, or I don't know, like do your to-do tool or to-do list inside a table. Like this is very, how to say, like a skill set that's going to be used in very various ways. While building tools, building products, it's that you have to deliver something that's valuable. It's true, but that we don't need, also like 10,000 of Airbnb clones and marketplaces. And I feel like sometimes also there is a bit too much products being built because a lot of people are hoping also to get the next, unicorn or something like this. While, just the basic skill of automating will always be useful to you and to people because everyone needs it.
Thank you. Since everyone needs it, do you have some examples or stories or just recommendations for business people who, let's say, they think, okay, me as an entrepreneur, I should learn automation and database no-code skills, or one of their team or a few, they should upskill them with these skills. They will think in terms of return on investment, what kind of specific or tangible results or problems they can solve if they add more and more automation skills to their teams.
So I will take the example because it's quite common, e-commerce. So, an online shop building, like there is this brand in Paris called Loom. They're doing like clothes that are very durable. They're very trying to be eco-friendly and all this. When they started, it's two people, two co-founders, and they didn't have a developer. They didn't have coding skills, And they decided, okay, we will manage to start our online shop without developers. So they went to Shopify. This is to do the shop. Like, people know about that. But then when you're selling clothes, you have many things that are happening after the sale. You have to send an email to the client to confirm that the sale went okay. Then you have, once the clothes has been shipped, you have to send an email to confirm the shipping. You have to know once the clothes has arrived. And this you can do manually also, but of course, but if you want to scale, you have to do it. You can automate this, all this sequence of email, and having the email sent at the right time requires some coding skills or a good usage of automation tools, like, the one we mentioned. And those people, they manage to do everything without coders, even sending the data to the warehouse, sending many things. They have a great experience, client experience. And it goes back to the question you were asking earlier about, of course, they could have used a tool for email sequences, that exists, like drip emails, but they decided to do by themselves. They used Make, and they wanted to have their own experience for their client, something very custom. For instance, after 3 months, they send you an email to say, oh, how is your clothes going? Is there a hole or something? Can we repair it? 1 year later also. They just wanted to not use something that's on the shelf. They wanted to build their own experience and provide, a great experience because it was important to them. And so they could own, this. And I think that was... there are many examples. I like this one because it's a brand that is quite successful. Still to this day, they don't have any coders, so they saved a lot of money. You're asking about the return on investment. Well, they already saved in the beginning because they didn't have to invest. So their investment was much lower. They had a lot to invest already to build the clothes, to produce the clothes, to produce things. So if they could save on the digital part, which is very important to them because they are online shop only, they don't have a physical shop. So, this is, I think, easy way to see, where you save money and you save also the staff, small staff, because everything is automated.
Thank you. And before we finish, I have to ask you this question. I was speaking to the founder of NoCode Germany, and what he said he wants is to prove that developers are wasting a lot of time being inefficient and unproductive, that maximum they're truly being productive 2 hours in the day. And therefore, using no-code tools is really, really, really much more efficient and productive than hiring coders or having a coding team. In most cases, of course, we're not speaking like people at Google or whatever, but for most normal companies. As someone who knows both sides, you have been very technical, CTO and all that, as well as the no-code side. Do you agree with this, or is this just a perspective of someone who loves no code and therefore sees everybody else as wrong?
I had a chance to meet him actually, and we had a chat. He knows also code, like the coder world, very well because he had a startup like recruiting like top level coders, and so. But I think he's being a bit harsh on the productivity of coders. What I would say is that I would like to see more coders embrace, especially automation tools, because part of they could save time. There are things you will always have to code. I think we're really far from the time where no-code tools can allow you to do everything. But mixing both, I think, is the true secret of productivity. And a coder, and I include myself in this, with a background, in technical skills, who also masters the no-code tools, and especially the automation tools, to connect APIs and things like that. Connecting APIs is a long process. You have to learn to read the documentation. When you're a coder, it's tough. You're writing a lot of code to process the data. You can do this with automation tools, saves you a lot of time. And then the specific part, maybe processing the data in a specific way that's very, for your project, very specific. Then you code that, And a lot of tools, they allow you to put code inside them also, like literally, I think Airtable for this, again, I love Airtable, so that's why I talk a lot about it, but Airtable, you can put scripts, you can build apps with code, there is this mix of no code plus code, which I think is part of this future. And it can be two different people, a no-coder working with a coder, but the no-coder is saving time and enhancing the productivity of the coder, or it can be the one person who does it all. There is this very interesting project, I don't know if you've seen it, Code Meets No Code, I think, that by Aaron and Connor. It's a community of no-coders, I think, who are mixing a lot of code, like have more of a low-code approach to those tools, and they're doing amazing thing. They're unstoppable. They can do everything. So yeah, and you can come from both sides, to have this approach. So I hope more coders come towards no code, but I wouldn't say no coders are more efficient than coders. It's different.
Thank you. That's a very balanced perspective. And since you're mentioning no-code tools that can add code within them, PROCESIO has such custom actions where people can code or add their own code to whatever no-code that they're using. PROCESIO is the modern low-code, no-code platform for advanced automation and creating an enterprise-grade backend for your software, even if you use Bubble or anything. Any listener or viewer can request a free account at procesio.app, and they get every month 1 full hour of execution time, which is equivalent to 100 human hours. And to the listeners and viewers who need more than that, there is a very generous 50% upgrade code that you can use. It's better 50 off, one word, capital letters, and you can read more in the description. And you, Alexis, can you speak about Contournement, what people can learn there, some francophone or French-speaking people or not, as well as about your podcast, what's interesting there, so that people can find you and can learn more?
Thanks for this opportunity. Well, Contournement is like all the content we produce is in French. So if you speak French, please come. We'll be very happy. We do courses about no-code ops, I would say. So it's like focused on several tools. And this we have a introductory course, I would say, about no-code ops, like connecting several tools and understanding this philosophy of using several tools to be more productive. And then there's the French NoCode Community. Also, if you speak French, everyone is welcome there. And I do a small podcast in English where I had a chance to meet Chris from NoCode Germany and several people. When I travel, I try to meet the interesting no-coders where I am, and so I interview them. So that's in English. And I also ask them a little bit about their city, their country. I'm looking, and if you're watching this and you're part of a local no-code community, please contact me, because I'm looking for all the communities and see, I think we can learn a lot, by exchanging how people are doing no-code in different countries. And I'm interested in seeing the differences, and maybe there are no differences. Everyone's doing the same, that would be also interesting. So yeah, this is more like the international version of it.
Thank you, Alexis. This was my privilege, my honor, a truly enriching conversation. And we went in all directions and it was all interesting. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. It was super, super interesting exchange, definitely. We learn a lot by all those chats. And that's why I'm super happy to do this.